It comes during a tumultuous time for humanitarian efforts, with a loss in funding due to the Trump administration's widespread cuts in foreign aid and higher fuel prices stemming from the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. In a new report, the World Food Program is warning that an additional 2.5 million people in Somalia, 1.3 million in Sri Lanka, and 2.3 million in Afghanistan are struggling to meet basic food needs and in some cases are being pushed into acute hunger due to the crisis. And joining us now is Carl Skau, the program's acting executive director and chief operating officer. Acting director, we appreciate you joining us. When we consider the more acute hunger being experienced in certain areas of the world, is this due to a fertilizer problem from the Strait of Hormuz being closed? Is it simply fuel costs, or is it a multitude of things altogether?
Well, it's a mix of things, but of course the crisis in the Middle East have hit the humanitarian sector at different levels. The first is the crisis in Lebanon, which is really the humanitarian epicenter of this crisis, with hundreds of thousands of people displaced. But then at the second layer is the cost to our operations, and that's globally across operations, whether in the Sahel in Africa or in the east of Africa or in Asia. And the third layer is really how it's now pushing more people into acute hunger. You know, the price of energy and the price of food correlates very tightly, especially in poor countries. And when families are spending all their money already on food, if the price of food goes up 20-30%, well, they eat 20 or 30% less. And so our estimate is that if a barrel of oil remains over $100 until July, some 45 million people extra will be pushed into acute hunger. And that's already on top of record high levels of acute hunger. And so what we are coming out with today is a report pointing to specific countries and how it's playing out in Somalia, in Afghanistan, and in Sri Lanka, really to draw attention to this crisis, and so that the international community steps out and supports us in responding to this crisis.
You mentioned Lebanon, Carl. Are you able to be on the ground there, or in Iran for that matter, where a whole new humanitarian crisis appears to be unfolding?
I mean, certainly in Lebanon, 24 hours into the war, we were with the government, with authorities, responding in the shelters with hot meals, but also assisting displaced who were staying with families and friends with cash. We've also had several convoys to the south, to those families who are stuck in the south. It's a struggle because the money is not coming forward like it was a couple of years ago only, but we know how to do this, and we have the capacity in Lebanon. In Iran, it's different. We have been supporting the Afghani refugees in Iran, but there has not been a request to respond to the crisis there so far.
Well, and of course, the crisis in the Middle East as a whole has taken up a lot of the oxygen in terms of the global humanitarian conversation, and less attention is paid to places like Sudan, which is confirmed to be in countrywide famine. What else is needed there? What are the limits of what the World Food Program is able to do there right now?
I mean, like I said, we are already having record high hunger, 300 million people. It's a threefold increase only in 5 years since we received the Nobel Peace Prize back in 2020. In Sudan, it's the biggest hunger crisis, the biggest humanitarian crisis that we have. And like you said, the attention is not there. We are assisting some 4 to 5 million people every month, 2 million of those in the hardest to reach areas. But that's not enough. We're talking about 10, 15 million people that need humanitarian support. And in some areas, like in the Darfur, we are struggling with access challenges, but we're also struggling with enough resources, with money. We are only able to assist those in most need with some 70% of their needs. And in other parts, it's only half rations. And so we need the international community to step up to, first and foremost, end the war, to have a ceasefire, but then also to fund our operations and put pressure so that we have access to those people who are in desperate need.
How have you been able to make up for the funding shortages, Carl? Is it through private donations?
I mean, we're working actively to try to broaden our funding base, including through private donations, but it's nowhere near what's needed. You know, we have a $13 billion budget to reach over 130 million people. We're estimating that we reach about a half of that, and that meant deep cuts in places like Somalia, Afghanistan. I've just come back from Afghanistan. I was at a health clinic outside Jalalabad, where you have hundreds of women lined up with severely malnourished children on their arms, and they are being turned back because we have no commodities left. We don't have the money to provide. And you know, I don't think we have ever seen that before. In South Sudan, for example, we have pockets of IPC5, which is famine-like conditions. We are able to reach them with airplanes, but we don't have the resources to pay for those airplanes. So, you know, it's a unique situation where the needs are high. We have starvation, and we don't have the resources to assist even those in most need.
Well, you're doing incredible work, Carl, and we'd like to stay in touch with you on it. Carl Skau is Acting Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of the UN World Food Program. We thank you for being with us.